Good morning, world. I'm Steve Rao, the host of Pod TV's World Edition. And on Pod TV, we bring you news from around the world, talk about innovation, and continue our discussion as we make our final push getting through the Omicron variant and a never ending pandemic. I will be here for about 30 minutes today. I have a work engagement in Raleigh, but I wanted to begin my monologue with shortly returning from the economic forecast by NC State professor, retired professor, Dr. Michael Walden. And I wanted to just share feedback with our audience today, some things I'd like to talk about as we deal with the economy. Dr. Walden is a renowned economist. This is a tradition every year in North Carolina and Cary in the Research Triangle Park, if you're watching around the world, where he talked about the post pandemic recovery and where we are as we head into 2022. And we are in 2022. Well, a couple of trends I want to share with the viewers. First of all, that we talked about the labor shortages, which we're witnessing and experiencing in our economy here in the United States and mostly around the world. And these labor shortages are due to school schedules changing. Obviously, the COVID pandemic, which is now closed out on its second year, the cash stimuluses and the $5.5 trillion of money, which represents over 25% of the GDP, 80 billion has come into our own home state of North Carolina. All of this has led people to stay at home. In North Carolina, about 70,000 citizens are not in the workforce, about 20% possibly because of retirement, but still it's a lot of people not working. Hence, long lines and shortages of good service when we go to stores. Now, the second trend we talked about is inflation. And the last time we saw inflation was in 1979 when President Carter was in the White House. The response, Dr. Walden said, to deal with inflation is going to be to increase our interest rates, which is pretty much close to zero in the United States now, and decrease the money supply without hindering economic growth. It's a tough balance, and we are going to see whether or not this administration would be able to do that. Now, he cited two reasons for inflation. One that I've heard from the Republicans often, which is what they call the demand pull theory, which is that there's just so much cash in the system that there's pent up demand. And with people have that much cash, they're just going to start buying left and right, particularly products. And that's why we have prices going up. And then the supply push theory, which is that the economic disruptions are in our supply chain have just created a shortage of goods. And when demand needs supply, prices will rise. But make no mistake, inflation is here. It is a serious issue, and we're now going to have to deal with it. I'll close my monologue with some final thoughts that Dr. Walden shared with us this morning, and that is, what is the post-pandemic world going to be like? Assuming that we get through this final push of the Omicron variant and that we have more herd immunity here in the United States and hopefully around the world. Well, he cited four things I think that are very interesting. We've talked about all of these on our show. First is the acceleration of on-the-job training and apprenticeship training and skill training, as he claims that apprenticeships and community colleges and education in general have a much shorter shelf life. And as we continue to see automation and automating away jobs, we're going to have to quickly retool and reskill our workers. And so this is a really important thing that we need to see in a post-COVID world. More distance learning, possibly internet expansion by the year 2030, where everyone has internet, and the future of work, with today about 30% back at work. At the peak of the pandemic, it was 60%. The final thing that I will say as I now begin our discussion is what this would mean with the urbanization of America. If you have internet, if people are comfortable living away from where they work and a more remote work environment, people may, in his theory, move away from cities, which I found to be very interesting. So he thinks that could be the next wave of economic development, maybe a shift away from the urban to the rural. And I don't know whether that's something that's going to happen around the world. We'll be talking about these issues, but that's my monologue for today. Tomorrow, we'll be talking and devoting an entire show on democracy, the decay of democracy around the world, looking at the one-year anniversary of insurrection of our capital and what we can learn from it. And is the United States in danger of a civil war, which some historians are saying? I disagree with that, but we're going to talk about that tomorrow. With us today, and we welcome you to the show, we have with us Mark Lee, my co-host and producer, We have
Yep, we've got some other guests as well, and I'm going to bring them on, but I'm not going to let you off that fast, Mr. Steve, and everything, because you have some major good news that is international news, news that international people might be interested in as well, because your city, Morrisville, has recently been awarded a $1 billion real estate project. So I just wanted to congratulate you for that, because apparently it's going to be dealing with biosciences and all of that, and it's a 109-acre campus in Morrisville, will be close to the Research Triangle Park, but
yeah,
not located in it.
Science 30. Are you talking about Science 37?
I believe that is the name of it and everything. I just know that it just recently got approved, and definitely a lot of people are very excited about it. And it is saying that it's going to happen, and it's going through the approval process now with your town. But it is looking like it's going to be you're dealing with bio manufacturing and multi-story labs and all of that kind of stuff. So it looks like y'all are definitely looking for some major stuff, and that was something that I saw in the news yesterday. So they're saying that currently more than 600 life science companies call this area home, including big names like Pfizer, LabCorp, and Novo Nordisk. But definitely, it looks like y'all are going to be doing this really big project and everything of that nature. So I'd seen that in the news yesterday. So now I'm going to ready to bring up the rest of our guests, and maybe they want to congratulate you and congratulate what's going on in development in the city of Morrisville. But that did kind of raised my eyebrows when I saw that that was a major money thing that was coming your way. And of course, who knows? Maybe that'll have Sasha invest in more in Pfizer,
Oh,
because
good
I know he's
morning.
a big time
Good
investor
morning.
in
Yeah, we
things of
have.
that nature. And Pfizer is based here. Who knows? Maybe they'll be one of the companies that comes here in this area as well. So, Sasha, I don't know if you had heard about this news about Steve's town and everything, where some other major corporations are, and if you have any thoughts about major investments like that in what amount to relatively small communities, but is definitely a boost to their economy and things along those lines. And I'll bring up Mark Thimick as well. But Sasha, any comments, any thoughts?
You actually answered your own question. It's very difficult for me to add anything to that. Of course, it's nothing but good news. Um, and the the side effects could be quite lucrative for everybody's involved. So there's nothing but to cheer about this wonderful news.
Cool.
Yes.
Yep.
Well, thank you. We're excited. And I'm going to close my monologue about economic development and some of the things we're seeing in a post-COVID world, as I also was with the Secretary of Commerce yesterday in North Carolina, who works for our Chief Minister, the Governor, um, on economic development in North Carolina. And we welcome Mark Lemming as well. What are your thoughts, guys? About, I mean, this was sort of a high level overview. I literally just came back from the economic forecast. Sort of a tradition here in North Carolina, ringing the new year. The Raleigh Chamber one was yesterday, capital city of our state. Then today was Cary's economic forecast. Friday is the regional one, which has been moved to virtual. And but the bottom line is this: I mean, inflation, uh, worker shortages. That's really the main issue that economists are focusing in on today. I'll start with Sasha. Sasha, what are your thoughts about fighting inflation? I mean, obviously, what they're saying is that you just got to increase the interest rates, decrease the supply of money in the system, and do that while at the time you don't want to risk hurting the economy. Do you think that's what this administration should be focusing on now as we gear towards the
Well,
end of this pandemic?
we have at 1 o'clock today the modern investing program that we are going to discuss at length. However, it all depends. If there are some economists who believe this transitional inflation, and it will be settled by itself in the next few months. It's quite possible that is the case. So in this situation, I don't think that the federal government should really get involved with raising interest rates, and if to raise, when and how much. Uh, it all remains to be seen. It's not an easy situation for right now. However, let's just wait and see. I would think that's the best approach.
Yes, and Sasha, that's a good point. And the last time this happened was 1979, where you had multiple crises, foreign policy crises, energy crisis, but you did have the inflation. And he brought in Paul Volcker, who actually was the one who reduced the interest rates, and so it worked. Um, I'm going to turn it over now to Mark Lee and Mark Demig. What are your thoughts about labor shortages? I mean, obviously, what's interesting is that the trillions of dollars of cash that's coming in the system, the fact that people are still getting healthcare, expanded Obamacare, expanded food stamps. Do you believe that's just focusing in on people not wanting to work and being more slow to come in, and that's why we're having shortages, Mark?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. One, I think that definitely, as Sasha has alluded to, that initial influx of money when the pandemic was in its early stages, it did get people maybe into a certain mindset of not wanting to go out into the workforce and things of that nature. There's still a lot of people, I know some people that are in my circle and everything, that are still very much concerned about going into a work environment because they don't necessarily feel 100% safe, even if though in some cases they have been vaccinated. In other cases, they might have reasons that they are opposed to vaccinations, but they are definitely still concerned about not wanting to be among people. So they are kind of enjoying the work from home kind of environment and things along that line. So that also raises a question about the statistics and things along that line, because if so many of us are working from home, how much of that is actually being reported? Because like I said, if you're working from home, then it's not as much, well, you still have to do your paychecks and everything else, but I'm thinking that there might be, maybe Mr. Themick has some theories about that there might be ways to kind of escape the system, or kind of like you may be, some of those figures may be underreported because the work is coming from home. And even though you are reporting in through various pay methods and entry methods in those job forces, I don't know that they're always being used the way that they should be. And then sometimes people are concerned about measurement of their productivity, because I do know that in some of the jobs there are ways to try to measure your productivity. There's even things that they might do with your mouse and things of that nature to make sure that you're actually working when you say that you're working, and that you're not over there running around doing household chores or who knows what and everything. But definitely I know that that is one of the concerns. And then a lot of these restaurants are still saying, and jobs that only pay minimum wage or pay a little bit, maybe a little bit above, but not much above, or depending on tips and everything, they're saying that they're having a hard time finding staff. And then there are people that are like in other fields that are saying that they may have an abundance of staff and everything. But I just am kind of wondering about some of these statistics and how they are coming at us and how accurate they are. Mr. Themick, do you have any thoughts? Mark, you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry. I think there's no question that there's a number of factors that are going on in the marketplace today. Certainly, without question, the federal government flooding the economy with all kinds of payments and extending unemployment compensation and all of those things certainly led to an initial drop off of people, which quite frankly they had lost their jobs, and then I think what we're seeing today is we're seeing people that are not necessarily wanting to come back into the workforce because they've got childcare issues, for example, or they've decided that they want to do something, they want to start their own company. They may want to approach things in a very different way because they're taking in the dramatic impact that COVID is having on their life and the life of their family and their friends and others. In addition, a lot of the jobs that are available appear to be more entry-level jobs or jobs in the hospitality industry. And so we also have to look at, what is the job market? How is it split in terms of employment and unemployment? The one other question that I haven't heard brought up that I would be interested in, and I think, Mark, you brought this up yesterday, there's over 4 million people that have just decided to drop out of the workforce.
Yeah.
do the unemployment figures include those 4 million people, or did they take those unemployment numbers, extract the 4 million plus that say are left the workforce, and then are reporting on what is left? Because those are two different statistics.
Yeah,
It's a
that's a
good
good point.
question.
I don't know. I might
Yeah, I don't
ask that
know.
question for the next forecast. I mean, we'd have to. I'm going to try to bring an economist in on Friday or next week. Trying. Dr. Walden said he might be able to join us, so I'm going to reach out to him.
Steve, along those same lines, because I would agree with something that Mr. Themick just said and everything, which is that not only have these people left their job, quite a few of them and everything, but quite a few of them have decided to go into, and you just alluded to it, entrepreneurship. And we do know that entrepreneurship can be a very difficult field, but it can also be a lucrative field depending on what field you're going into, your business plans, your way that you are organizing the entrepreneurship and things along that line. But I don't know that we've heard enough as to with the rise, because I think that there's actually been a rise in entrepreneurship during this time, but I don't know that anybody has actually documented that or shown that in a concrete way. But I would argue that there's probably been a rise in entrepreneurship. Hey, Nick, what do you think? You're an entrepreneur. Well, do you think that there's been a rise among people like yourself?
Usually you rise into entrepreneurship based on desperation, and my desperation took place back in 1983 or 84, something like that. I think it was in 1984. Unemployment was over 10%. Interest rates were over 10%. It was the Carter years, baby, and the choice was graduate into if you can get a job. There were no jobs. $5.50 an hour to $8.50 an hour. Okay, and $5.50 an hour, that's what I was paid to teach at University of Denver Law School. $8.50 an hour was my clerkship, or choice number two, behind door number two, where Carol Merrill was now standing, become your own boss, which is what I chose. And then I got lucky the first week I made $3,650. And I was going, that's better than working for $5 an hour. And I've been unemployed ever since. The thing is, not everybody's kicked out to be an entrepreneur, Mark. I mean, the thing is, after hiring a lot of employees, that they love the 9 to 5. And when you're a business owner, you stay after 5. You work 9, maybe 6 to 6, maybe 6 to 9. You work unbelievable hours, and people just don't get that. In other words, there's always stuff to do back at the office. So I was never there. I was like in there at 7 and out at 9. I mean, you just work tremendous hours. And then if you're getting started, you also have to work 6 or 7 days a week. Okay, you don't work 5 days a week. What is this 5 days, 40 hours stuff? Now I'm speaking to the entrepreneurs.
I work and I work. I mean, for me, I only have one. I work between my public duties, my media work, on my rail job. On any given day, I work 14 to 15 hours.
Yeah, and the thing is, Steve, every entrepreneur who's successful understands that. All the business owners understand it. The employees, I'll never forget, man. At 9 o'clock, I would shake their hands as they walked in the door in my office. 5 o'clock, I'd shake their hands walking out the door. I'm still there. I mean, and it was like that all the time. So, like I said, not everybody's kicked out to be an entrepreneur. But speaking about economics, we do have we right now have on schedule Dennis Stearns on Economics Monday, who will be he manages locally a $1.6 billion fund. Asset under management company. I've known him for like 50 years. He really wanted to do this. Okay. And so like 50 years ago, he starts it. Now today he's got 1.6 billion, but it takes a long time. People don't understand that particular, how long it takes to ramp up a successful business. I don't think people really understand it. We could do a lot of discussions on that area because today's entrepreneurs, Mark, they believe, I'm going to start a business, everything's going to work out. I'll check out at 5 o'clock. Well, they're going to fail. I mean, or they hear about somebody successful, like, Elon Musk. But Elon Musk is a nut. He works 24/7.
Either that or they've gotten multiple jobs and things of that nature, or multiple streams, even within the entrepreneurship. We're very fortunate to have Mark Themick here with us and everything. And I know that
he's got something going on. He has several different things going on.
That's what I said. He's got several different
Tell us a little bit about your entrepreneur ventures, because you're liking a lot of stuff.
Nick is absolutely right. Being an entrepreneur, I've worked both on the major corporate side, the smaller company, and as an entrepreneur building and developing companies. And I own a few companies now. And he's absolutely right. It is a real dedication to in fact what you love. And the first thing I would say is maybe sometimes the difference between working at a job and creating a new company is the difference between what you need to do and what you love to do. Right. So if you love to do it, then you I'm sure Nick and others, everyone here on the call would agree that they don't think about the hours they're putting in as much as they think about what it is that they're accomplishing and doing and creating in value for themselves and other people. One of the areas that I just recently got more involved, and I've been involved for a while, is the whole PPE area, because that's the personal protection equipment area. And in particular now, the test kits, which I have access now to anywhere from thousands to millions. Matter of fact, I just literally, while we were on the program, I got an email from a guy asking for 1 to 2 million eye health test, rapid COVID test kits, which I have access to and can provide. So I'm also, as an entrepreneur, thinking about the health and safety of not only my people, but lots of businesses, because we're in competition to get these test kits with the government. The government is basically buying up massive supplies. These test kits are really important to businesses that I have talked to, so that they know that their employees are healthy, so that when they come to work, if they're coming to a physical location together or going to an event together, that they're safe and their families are safe. So that's another area that I've expanded into as an entrepreneur, because I really have seen the need and was fortunate enough to make the connections to actually have direct supplies from the title holders of a number of rapid COVID test kits, including the Acon, FlowFlex, as well as the iHeart test kits. And I literally yesterday completed an order with one of the largest retail organizations in the United States for initial just 50,000, and that'll take them about 2 days, 3 days to go through, and they'll be adding more. So I think entrepreneurship for some people is exciting, is interesting. It's hard work. You risk everything when you do this, and sometimes you lose, and sometimes you win.
Right.
So,
along those same lines, just really quickly, can you put it out to the whole area of like the international? Because I was reading an article in the AP where there was actually a gentleman, ironically, he was in game development in Spain and everything, but he was saying that he actually did the test, the home test, and all of that. But then after he did the home test, had the results that he got, and when he tried to contact his local health center, his calls went unanswered. The online appointments were booked up, and he turned to the emergency room for confirmation. And he's been going through this whole thing of being trying to find out, whether his self-diagnosis was going to be the true diagnosis or the better diagnosis. Because when he went to the hospital, he was finding PCR tests that weren't available, and where he was having a hard time getting these more reliable tests. So I was just wondering.
You bring up a good point, Mark. And one of the things in one of the eye health is actually a 2-pack. It's 2 tests. So let's say you take that test and it comes up negative, and you want to reassure yourself, you take a second test. But what's important and valuable about that is you're taking that test wherever it's convenient for you, at your office, your home, wherever it is. You're not standing in a line waiting for a test and looking to get 3 to 5 days the results. You're looking for results now in the privacy of your own situation, and you can share those results however you want to share those results. So I think that's the other issue here. But COVID is having a huge impact on the creation of entrepreneurs and new jobs, but it's also having a geographical impact, because we see tremendous numbers of people moving from California to Texas or to Florida, where we have no state income tax states that are very business friendly, versus California, which is not as business friendly as many other states. And so we're not only driving entrepreneurship, but we're driving a whole change in where people decide to live. And many of them are escaping these very high cost living areas which means they're leaving their jobs as well. And that could also add to that number.
We're also seeing
Right.
in the U.S. We've talked about immigration on this show. Many immigrants become entrepreneurs. They leave other countries and they come in to start their great ideas. We often forget that 44% of the Fortune 500 were founded by immigrants
Mhm.
and into the United States. And I think that the bottom line is that it's going to be interesting to see whether people will want to come to America with their great ideas. Make no mistake, Canada, Israel, many other countries are wanting to be the place where people can come with their great ideas. And
And
I think
speaking
that's
of
going
great
to be,
ideas and everything, Steve, and I see that we've got Kimberly with us and everything.
yes,
There
Kimberly,
was
welcome.
actually a poll that came out recently and everything, and it's actually coming back to something I know you're going to talk about later on this week. But over half of the Americans surveyed say that they think that the January 6th attack will probably happen again. That was a poll from Axios and Momentum, and they said
Yeah.
that, there's a lot of people that are saying that it could happen in the next few years, that we could get another attack. And I'm here in Durham, North Carolina, and I don't know if y'all are aware of this, but yesterday, North Carolina Central was among at least 7, so there might have been more, historically Black colleges and universities to receive a bomb threat. So there's already some kind of craziness going on in the world, and one of them is literally just around the corner. Literally, my dad lives not that far from that campus and everything. But I just wondered everybody's thoughts about maybe a rise in people's boldness, for lack of a better term, and everything along that line. And do
Well,
you think that there might be other attacks?
well, and by the way, 700 people have been arrested in the United States for the insurrection in the Capitol. We're going to be talking about this tomorrow. I'll start it off as we kick it off to the panel. But I think that one thing that I've been hearing from some historians is that I'm trying to research for tomorrow's show is, are we at risk of another civil war in the United States, and how do civil wars start? Um, I believe that the kind of tension we're seeing is based on race, on culture, on all kinds of issues. The pandemic, I think being locked away in our homes for 2 years, where we have more time to be on screens, to be on social media platforms, has just been adding like kerosene to the fire. And this has created such a vitriolic bitterness in our politics. And so I don't think that there's going to be another attack on the Capitol. I'm an optimist. I think that most of the attacks last year were because they did not accept Biden being the president. But these bomb threats, people being threatened, is it? I don't know. But do you believe American democracy is in decay? Why don't we go around the room and
Well,
yeah.
Steve, there was actually a study done on this not too long ago. They said that 16% of Americans identify themselves as alt-right, crazy right-wingers. 6% identify themselves as alt-left, crazy left-wingers, which is about 16%. And I think it was around 11% and 6%. So 11% were alt-right, 6% were alt-left, which is about 16% of our population. 84% of our population are not crazies. Okay. But unfortunately, we have 16% that are, and they tend to dominate the news and the landscape. And that's the real problem that we have in this country. We're not divided. I would say that you have about 85% of the country are pretty middle of the ground, but you do have the left wingers and the right wingers that move the national agenda to the extremes. And according to the studies, that's what they say.
Well,
Kim,
I want to interject
yeah,
on that a little bit, Nick.
go
I
ahead.
think their studies
Yeah.
are a little off
Yeah.
because sometimes they don't collect from every person that lives in this country. What I have seen is that the people who are divided are the ones who are causing this great split and the problems we have. And, to address the question that we have, will this happen again, January 5th? I think it will, because take a look at what just happened to Kelly Earnby. Rather than give her family sympathy, care, love for her death, and memory for her service to not just her state, but her country and to her community, they shamed her for not having a vaccine. And they're using her Facebook, her Twitter accounts to shame her rather than support the family. It's very disgusting what the people have become in this country, rather than giving support to each other. And, I posted something from a video I saw the other day of an ice skating tournament. And, when one person won and they're standing there getting their medals and everything, the loser reached over, grabbed the flag behind the guy so that it would show behind him. That's the leader we need. We need leaders that even when they lose or don't win the complete goal, that they step up to the plate, continue to serve the country, and help the leader that's in place still shine. Those are but instead we've got everyone pandering, pointing fingers. But I am so disappointed in those who chose to shame a person whose intentions were always good. Her intentions were good. She never truly went out to hurt anybody. She served her country very well. I send my sympathies to that family. It doesn't matter right now how she died or why. What matters is how much support you give the families. And quite frankly, the people who have pandered on their page, I hope they change.
Well, there was another interesting also demographic shift or economists bringing up China. They said that China's policy of basically isolation may not serve them well with the Omicron variant. In other words, all of a sudden they're going to have tremendous amount of people infected, or they have to be in continuous lockdown, which will affect their economy. Anyway, there was an economist who was saying that China may start moving in the wrong direction because of their United States will probably reach herd immunity because you're either going to be vaccinated or you're going to be sick. And that's it.
Well, I want to add to that. So I've got a lot of
China
friends,
might be in trouble.
Right. I have a lot of friends who have Omicron, right? Or one member in their family tested positive. They all quarantined. I've been listening to their stories. I even was around somebody who had it. And we've all tested negative. So, but anyway, so that's the situation there. I mean, I don't think it's as potent. I don't know that it matters if you're vaccinated or not with this particular strand, because people who were taking care and getting their vaccinations are still getting it. But I have personally spoke to a lot of people that go, it's not as bad. It's more like the flu. Treat it, the symptoms, and you'll get over it in a couple of days. They're releasing people from quarantine in 5 days rather than the 2 weeks. So just, open up your ears and stop listening to the pandering on media.
Well, hold on a second. Speaking of pandering and everything, by the way, one of those universities was in Texas, that being Prairie View A&M. Xavier was another one that got that threat yesterday in Norfolk State, Howard, and like I said, Central, and there might have been some others that I'm missing and everything. But I was just wondering, Sasha, are y'all seeing a lot of this kind of division in Canada, and how do y'all treat people that are divisive in Canada and things along that line? So, Sasha, how do you handle people that might be more radical in Canada from what you've seen?
Well, the process in Canada is very similar to one in the United States, except that it's about 150 times weaker. And it's, you see, in Canada, the main question is, in my opinion, is what is better, lousy peace or a good war? So I think it's probably the United States also has to be answer to that question. However, speaking about the war is a much more real war and potent war is happening in Europe about any time between Ukraine and Russia. That is much more dangerous in my opinion, because actually there are 4 different scenarios. Number 1, there will be no war. Number 2, there will be a war, conventional war. Number 3, it will be conventional war with limited nuclear arms used. And finally, all-out nuclear war. So there are 4 scenarios. I think the first one, that there will be a peace and no war at all, I think it has probably up to 50% chance. Now, the other 3 all fit in the remaining 50%, and this is a very difficult call. I still hope that there will be no nuclear exchanges. I would say 40% probably out of the remaining 50, there will be no nuclear exchanges. And then 5%, there will be limited nuclear exchange, and 5% all-out nuclear exchange. So that scenario is far more dangerous than whatever civil war in U.S. And I think, in fact, that the civil war in U.S. would be very healthy for the country economy, the social, racial, whatever other divides there are, because there will be people will appreciate peace so much that whatever each war also ends in peace. So whatever peace will be after that war, it will be really great peace, and everybody will be extremely happy and will go on to do their small business or not so small business, or work elsewhere, or whatever else they want to do. In my opinion.
Yeah,
Oh
you know,
gosh,
Sasha, I'm actually surprised though that the media doesn't pick up on the Ukraine-Russian situation to be potentially more dangerous than the COVID-19. In other
Absolutely.
words, you're talking about a very hot tinderbox over there with 100,000 Russian troops on the border that could cross over any time and create a huge war. Because remember, Putin did invade and take the Crimea, just marched his troops in. It's ours now. Okay. And there's nothing, well, except the Ukrainian army, possibly. And we've seen how armies work, foreign armies. Look at Afghanistan. They had 400,000 purported troops. Well, the Taliban, with a couple people, just took over the whole country. The Ukraine situation in Russia is an extremely hot tinderbox that's just not getting a lot of media attention, and probably won't until Putin, if he does, pull the trigger.
Well,
If he says, okay, we're going in now, and all of a sudden, how is the European Union actually going to respond? How's America going to respond? Are we going to respond? Good question.
yeah,
Nika,
and these are all foreign policy questions.
Yeah,
I
you're talking about extremely important foreign policy decisions. You're talking about literally hundreds of thousands of millions of people potentially wiped out overnight in a huge war. I mean, you're not talking about something small, especially the Europeans are crazy. I mean, the thing is, who knows what they're going to do in the United States? Good question, also as well. So this is something that I don't think the press has looked at too well. I'm glad you're looking at it. I'm sure the people in Eastern Europe, because we are beaming into Ukraine, Lithuania, Estonia, and Latvia, are looking into it because they're sitting on the border of
they're
this.
next.
They're
They
next.
are
So,
next. Well,
Yeah.
you see, I'm pretty sure that Putin read a lot of good books about poker. Probably Huntington. There are three books
Yeah,
about
Harrington.
poker.
Yeah.
I think what Putin is doing really, that in poker any idiot can win a good hand. Let's see, if you have two aces and you got another two in remaining cards, so you're going to win that hand. I'm pretty sure. Now, to win a poker hand with a bad hand, that requires a real art, a real the high level of understanding the game. And I think Putin prepared himself very well to that. First of all, I was listening to a few Russian programs recently. They are all preparing people for a war. They're all talking, they're bringing the war specialists, generals, all these usual psychopaths who are very skillful at getting the message through. And what he's doing is he wants to achieve something of a Yalta 2,
Right.
and make some kind of a division in a world where US and West will have some kind of a sphere of influence, and the rest will be Russia's sphere of influence. But you see, in the only difference being that in Yalta, the USSR was already it just happened a few weeks later, but it was a de facto winner of Second World War, one of the winners for sure.
Right.
Now, today, after 30 years ago, there was complete collapse of the Soviet Union. And this is why I think the George W. Bush, the elder, he is far the worst president of all times, simply because instead of engraved in stone that Russia, USSR, whatever you are losers. And as losers, you are going to do number one, number two, number three, number four, or else. The end of story. They would sign any documents. Instead, he was sending plane loads of food, clothing, and all other things, which is a wonderful thing. But first, you have to sign what you are doing, what's happened. You have to really put it all down. Then you can send all this wonderful food and clothing. And they called it bush legs, those chicken legs, what the U.S. was sending to Russia. They had the name in Russia, bush legs.
We'll take a quick commercial break before we get back to the war being ending.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Is that the next Economics Monday show?
Yeah, that's the next
Hold on a second.
Economics
That was
Monday.
a great new commercial. I love that new commercial that Nick did and everything. I did have a question for Nick based on Utah and all of that. By the way, I love that commercial. And this is actually for everybody since we got so many entrepreneurs here. How can you be an entrepreneur and not know that your mail is being monitored? Because apparently there was a tech mogul that got recently fired because he sent out an email that said that the whole COVID thing was in part an effort by the Jews to exterminate billions of people. And he owns like a major company called Entrada. So he sent out an email saying that he believes that the Jews are behind this. For 300 years, the Jews have been trying to infiltrate the Catholic Church and place a Jew
Mark,
at the time.
I would believe this theory if there would be some kind of a secret vaccine insulating Jews from getting coronavirus. But I never heard about such a vaccine. So therefore, Jews are just vulnerable to be sick with coronavirus.
I agree. I just want to know what the thinking.
The thing is, it's like the QAnon theories. Okay, Mark, there's, again, you get a group of people large enough, you'll get these 1/2 of 1% or 1/4 1% of crazies out there that are basically delusional. They'll spout things off and they'll end up in the media. And one of them actually got elected to Congress. So, the thing is, that's what you're seeing out there. And of course, the media picks it up because they're going, oh boy, this is something incredibly crazy. Let's beam it out so people can listen to it. But I think that's
Mr. Simic
and these conspiracy theories.
And definitely Ms. Calhoun,
Mark,
when you sent out emails, did you not know that the emails might be picked up? My whole question is, this is an executive. Okay. How did he not know that this was not going to get picked up?
He's an idiot. Just because he's an executive doesn't mean he's very smart. Okay. It was really funny when it comes to conspiracy theories. When I moved from Florida to Atlanta, one of my former person I went to school with who was an attorney there goes, there's a bunch of people around Atlanta that believe in conspiracies. I said, are you kidding me? I didn't believe there were people that believed in conspiracies and that we're always against them. This is, by the way, a paranoid delusion. First of all, if you believe in a conspiracy theory against you, trust me, you're not that important for anybody to create a conspiracy against. You just aren't. Okay. And they don't get how unimportant they really are and how their conspiracy theories, how lunatic they really are. They need to do something productive with their lives. And what would be productive? Okay. One thing, and Sasha and I have gone over, the average American in the United States, 70% of them don't have $1,000 in their bank account. Now, that was a real hard statistic for me to read because I'm going, are you kidding me? Sasha, this just came down. In other words, the 70% of Americans that we beam to, if I said, hey, guys, we need $1,000 because we have this life-saving thing that'll make you live forever. They're going to say, I don't have $1,000.
But Nick, you're going to love this as well.
These same people will engage in conspiracy theories. Mark,
no,
they
but
shouldn't
Nick,
be
you're going
doing
to love
that.
this one too.
They should be working.
They should be working, but you're going to love this one.
$1,000.
You're going to love this one too. There was a story yesterday that came out of this state, North Carolina. A woman went to her son's basketball game. She, went home after watching her son play basketball. I don't know whether they won or lost, but she watched the game. She did not realize that thieves had gotten into her car, and tried to do whatever they were doing until they tried to spend almost $10,000 of her money. So it's not until she looked at her bank account and she's like, oh, wait a minute, there's $10,000 missing, that she realized that she had been robbed like earlier that day and everything.
Yeah, well, the thing is, this is to me, this is a very serious problem in the United States. A lot of it deals with financial education, and I'll put it up there, and here it is. The 70% of Americans don't have $1,000. So when Sasha, when you're doing your show, which I plan to be on today, it's a great show, Modern Investing. Okay, just realize 70% of the people that we beam to can't do anything because they only have $1,000 to invest.
So maybe we should put a disclaimer in a show that those who belong to 70% of Americans who don't have $1,000 turn it off.
Right, please turn it off. Right. That's where I'm at. I'm going, okay, turn it off. Okay, because the thing is, now here's another. Well, the thing is the top 1%. Okay, here's what the top 1% have. They have a little bit more. You'll like this top statistic. This is how skewed it is. The top 1% have 8 million to invest. Okay, so now all of a sudden you've got this huge, like I said, it's a huge skewing upwards of assets in the United States. In other words, you go from this, the bottom 70%, to now you get to the top 1%. Okay, there's a big difference. I think our show needs to be geared toward the top 1%, and that's I'm fine with that. In other words, the bottom 70% that don't have $1,000, they should. I agree with you. They shouldn't watch the show. Now the top 1% that have 8 million to invest, they should be watching the show, because some of them actually don't do their own individual investing. In other words, they have money managers and financial managers who invest for them, and basically they watch their money managers. They don't really watch the market. I do enjoy the show because it's actually gears to individual stocks and equities and small caps. I'm like Peter. I'm just not that familiar with the small caps.
No, I can't dismiss it at all, because small caps, they're married, but you have to be so specialized in that area. And once
you have to be a little lucky, I think, too.
A little bit of luck. I can confess that I'm of those who was very lucky at the time. Yeah. But I want to stress something. Once you're introduced to a large cap stocks, dividends paying stocks, and so on, all the small cap stocks are becoming so unattractive to you just by its nature. They're illiquid. They're still risky. And, you almost like I purchased last week one small stock. And you know what? I did it not without any enjoyment. I did it for the fear to miss a big move, if there is one.
Yeah.
And I knew about that stock, and it went up tenfold or so on, and I was not there. So I bought 3,000 shares just to be there. That's all.
Well. Actually, I have one small stock. Okay, I had a phone call with John Fanning, who's the founder of Napster. Okay, in case you don't know him, he also founded a company called Uber. So I was talking to him. He goes, Net Capital went public. I don't even know this, Kim. It went public. You should buy the stock. I was going like, first of all, John, you didn't tell me your company went public. Okay, it went public in April. I went and did my research. Anyway, I threw some money into Net Capital, and I made 50% already. I was going like, maybe I should have thrown in more.
Great money and everything, but Nick and Sasha, I'm not going to just dismiss those folks that you say have $1,000 or don't have $1,000 to invest, because I do think that if you've got 100 or 200 or even some lesser money, that you can invest and get up to that $1,000 mark and everything of that nature. So I'm not going to dismiss those folks that are that have less than 1,000 in the sense of making an investment. Maybe they're not going to invest in stocks at this particular point, but there are other things that they can invest in, whether it's on some things people may consider risky, like crypto, NFTs, and a number of other things. What is your thoughts around this, Mark Simic? Because I do know that NFTs and other things are definitely used by the gamers, and I do know that there are some people in the gaming world that actually are probably in that category that are $1,000 and less. So I was wondering your thoughts about investing in lower price things and the gaming economy.
Yeah, I would say that I spend a fair amount of time in the crowdfunding space. I have an agency that does a lot of work in that area. And I think if there are smaller investors that want to invest a couple of $100 or $500 or even $100, that go to Start Engine, go to WeFunder, and go look at new and emerging companies. Some with traction and been around and are really exciting companies. Those are longer risk companies. It's not a public company where you're going to be able to trade your stock freely. But if you're looking for a big return and you have patience, and you only have a couple of $100, that's really probably a better place for you to be. The second step up from that is when you get connected in this investment world and you pay attention to programs like Sasha and Nick are talking about, you also might discover some companies that are in a round of funding. So they have traction, they have a business, it's very exciting. I mentioned yesterday, believe Roundly, ROUNDLYX.com. They're just about to close a round. You can get in for $25,000. That's a company that's probably going to be $1 billion company in 2 years, 3 years max. It's a crypto company, and it's unique. It has no global boundaries. So part of what anybody should be looking for, in my opinion, in terms of investing, is to get an education, understand what you're investing in, and understand that if you're investing in public companies, great, you have liquidity. If you're investing in private companies, you're locked up, and your ability to get your money back may take a long time. You may never get it back.
Mhm.
So those are the risk things, and investors need to be informed at any price or any investment level, is my thought.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no question about it. You do have to
Absolutely.
look at
And that's-
what the company is doing. Yes, Steve.
Yes. No, it's okay. I want to go around the table before I get ready for closeout. I've got to head to Raleigh for another meeting, but I think that's when we talk about investing, I want to close out my monologue today talking about sort of economic development and what's continuing to drive investment in the United States, particularly in our home state of North Carolina. We're seeing a lot of momentum in life sciences and technology, two areas. Manufacturing looks like it's solid, advanced manufacturing. All these are investments that people are still making in a pandemic, during a pandemic, when there are shortages of workers. But I'll end with some comments that the Secretary of Commerce made yesterday. But I want to sort of go around the table as we prepare for our democracy discussion tomorrow, where we're going to be talking about what was going on that day when we saw in the United States and around the world people storming the steps of the Capitol, walking in, breaking chandeliers, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez under her desk, afraid for her life, 700 people arrested. This was a big day in the history of the United States. And we are going to talk about whether we think, well, we'll find out tomorrow whether it's going to happen again, but what's causing it and what can we do about it? And decay, like tooth decay, it's there. You got to fix it. If you don't treat a rotting tooth or a cavity, you're going to get a root canal. If you don't get a root canal, you're going to lose your teeth. You're going to have to get dentures, right? So the bottom line is democracy in decay, right? That's what we're going to be talking about tomorrow.
Tomorrow's the 1-year anniversary of the January 6th attacks. I guess that's the deal, right?
The January 6th attacks will be tomorrow's show. The
insurrection. Okay, that'll be pretty good. Insurrection, riots, really good stuff for the media. What are your thoughts, Mark Lee?
Well, we've got a very major event later on this evening where we're going to be discussing the worst president, and definitely Sasha alluded to one that he would like to see on the list and everything along those lines. But this time we're going to be talking about Trump, Obama. We'll also have added in that category Bush Sr., and we've added in Woodrow Wilson. So that is where the discussion will be centering this evening at 7 o'clock. I know that some of y'all will be on that along with me and Steve, and I think some of the lawyers will be there as well. So we've had some lively discussions in the past, and we're looking forward to more lively discussion in about 8 hours. And that should be a great discussion. And there are some people that we've got in mind for adding on the next list as well. So the discussions are continuing as we try to find the worst president of all, and things of that line. And hopefully we'll have that done by President's Day, which will be next month. And then shortly after that, we'll be on Roku. So that's some of the major news that's happening in the network and all of that. So I'll turn it over to Kim. Kim, what are some of your thoughts?
I think my thoughts are is we need to start thinking more peacefully, calm ourselves down a little bit, think about how our actions cause a ripple effect in other people's lives, and just become more considerate to other people and start uniting, start finding solutions, not pointing fingers, and just be kind.
Yes, I mean I think that's a Sasha and Nick and Mark, before we head to closeout, any chance?
Oh, I have one thing, just a short little commercial. That's just a plug for the worst president ever
Wonderful.
show, which is tonight at 7:00 live.
It's
Yeah,
a lot
and I
of
went down
fun.
to the ballot box.
A lot
The
of
ballot
fun.
box looked like it was full. I did see some people I think were stuffing the ballots. I'm not sure, but there might have been stuff in the ballots and all of that. But
Hanging
that
Chad.
was,
Bring some comments tonight, Mark,
Well,
so we can see who
It's
the
time
worst
for
president
it's
is.
time for our closeout tomorrow, as we're preparing for the discussion tonight on the worst president of the United States. I hope you enjoyed National Spaghetti Day in the United States. I had my spaghetti and meatballs last night when I got back home from a long day. And real quickly, I want to end. We started the day today talking about economic forecasts, and yesterday was a great day to end the day in my home state, North Carolina, where I was able to hear from the Secretary of Commerce, Michelle Sanders, a great leader who was an executive at Biogen and was the Secretary of Administration for our governor, and now the Commerce Secretary, the first African American female and executive to hold that position. She ended her talk to the Raleigh Chamber saying that we wanted to be the envy of the world in North Carolina, and cited 174 economic development announcements resulting in $10 billion worth of investment in North Carolina. This was a big year in North Carolina for economic development. I wonder if foreign direct investment will increase in other parts of the world as you're watching this show, and what drives your region of the world to be an attractive place for development, for economic development. And where we live, it's strong universities, graduating about 75,000 students a year from our major universities, marrying that to innovation and a diverse workforce, an inclusive workforce, one that appreciates that all of us want to aspire to achieve the great dreams of economic success. I liked Secretary Sanders' challenge of being the envy of the world, and she challenged and welcomed competition from Austin, from Silicon Valley, and others. And we also heard from inspiring speakers, including Cindy Eckert, who started the pharmaceutical company, The Pink Pill for Women, Women Viagra, actually, I think. And I think the name of the company is Strata. And we heard from her and a number of entrepreneurs, and they all emphasized one thing. The most important thing to grow their businesses are culture and talent. It's not really the economics sometimes that drives their decisions. Well, hopefully, we can continue to have those conversations about what makes your region in the world the place for talent, what makes your region in the world the place to have a culture. And what we're going to do in our discussion tomorrow is talk about how attractive is the United States anymore for global companies and entrepreneurs who want to come in to a nation where 44% of our Fortune 500 were founded by immigrants. Do you want to come to the United States, or do you want to go to Canada or Israel or another part of the world? Thank you for joining with us today on Pod TV. From our family to yours, we hope that you're getting off to a great start in 2022, living up to your resolutions, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow for our discussion of decay of democracy in America, or is it decaying? Thank you all so much, and we will see you tomorrow.